Alright, to round out our lecture here, looking at World War II, it's important to remember that the Second Sino-Japanese War was in full swing, starting again in 1937, and this would just evolve or become amalgamated into the Second World War. Japan during this time also creates its greater East Asian co-prosperity sphere. It was essentially Japan's vision for kind of a pan-Asian um, identity that it looked to champion. It did this by wanting to remove all vestiges of Western imperialism. And many Asian populations bought into this, having been on the receiving end of Western imperial policies and abuses. But many populations, these Asian populations, very quickly found out that Japan's true intent was not necessarily to simply erase the Western imperialism and its influence, but to impose Japan's own brand of imperialism on other Asian cultures and societies. So it really was, uh, simply a new imperial power imposing itself. And once that was revealed, once that was understood, then other Asian populations, among them the Vietnamese, decided that they were going to resist Japanese this Japanese brand of a co-prosperity sphere, or at least try to. In Europe, Germany invades Poland on September 1st, 1939. France and Britain declared war on Germany, having kind of drawn a line in the sand, saying that if they had invaded Poland, then this would mean war. In 1940, Germany, Japan, and Italy enter into a tripartite pact, kind of a mutual defense pact. Germany also in 1940 overruns France in a matter of 6 weeks, and Britain and the United States begin to coordinate strategic efforts. At this time in 1940, Britain was standing alone against the Axis powers, as they came to be called in Europe, which Japan would become part of as well. It's important to understand that France had fallen during this period of time, Russia remained neutral, and the United States also remained neutral. So it really was Britain kind of holding up the resistance, you might say, to Nazi aggression. Britain and the United States do agree to what's called the Atlantic Charter. This is basically a proclamation of war aims. Again, even before the United States is an official ally, it is basically the terms by which they would agree to conduct any type of military effort to establish peace once again, having vanquished these threats. This again, the charter itself is going to once again proclaim self-determination for the world's populations, and so this is kind of another a point that's carried through from the 14 points, but as we'll see, by the end of the war and in the aftermath, it is one that would be carried through to its fruition. By 1941, by the summer of that year, in June specifically, Germany goes to war with Russia, and by the end of that year, on December 7th, 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, thus making the U.S. retaliate by declaring war on Japan. Because of the tripartite pact that Japan is a part of, Hitler declares war on the United States, and as a result, the United States is drawn into World War II. Nazi Germany also in 1941 issues its final solution, as they called it, to the Jewish question. This is what begins to ramp up the Holocaust, in which you have the extermination of some 6 million Jews taking place. In addition to that, there are also another 9 to 10 million, again, this estimated, other groups that are targeted and rounded up and exterminated as well. These include, again, gypsies, ethnic Slavs, Russians, Ukrainians, political prisoners, and other groups like homosexuals. And this is all done in the name of racial purity, as championed by the Nazi state and their doctrines. The United States also proceeded to place Japanese Americans into concentration camps. FDR is going to issue his Executive Order 9066 after the attack on Pearl Harbor. The internment of Japanese Americans begins. There's this forced relocation of Japanese American populations from the West Coast to the western interior of the United States. It is believed that the Japanese Americans are seen as a security risk, and again, this is based solely on racial exploitation, and they would remain there for much, if not all, of the war. And they were exploited by having their property seized, forced to part with their property under less than ideal terms. They were, any possessions they could not carry with them were left. So it was another period in American history that was not kind to ethnic minorities. By 1943, Italy had been knocked out of the war, and by 1945, Germany surrendered. Russians, closing in from the east, were able to seize the eastern portions of Germany as well as much of Eastern Europe. The French, British, and U.S. forces were able to liberate all of France and Italy, as well as liberate western portions of Germany. By August of 1945, Japan sues for peace after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. As far as the toll of taken by World War II, the world is witnessing here awesome destruction. There's economic ruin exists in Japan, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, as well as Russia and much of Eastern Europe. There is a high degree of social and political collapse as well. In the case of Germany, there is a necessity to denazify the population at large. There's a need to pursue decartelization to basically break up the large industrial conglomerates that worked and functioned so well with the Nazi or the Nazi fascist state. There was a need to demilitarize Germany once again, and also to democratize Germany in the wake of World War II. There would be a formal occupation of Germany, and there would be Allied troops and even Russian troops until the fall of the Soviet Union. that would remain in Germany, and their troops there to this day. This is as part of the NATO alliance, which we'll discuss in the next lecture. As for Japan, and so for Germany, there was no conditional surrender. And the German people themselves were, you know, they, they understood and felt the full effect of defeat, unlike what had happened after World War One, where the armies retreated. They simply went back to within their borders. Here you have again a formal occupation taking place. Japan suffered much the same experience. There was one caveat where the emperor would be allowed to remain in power. So that was the sole condition that the Allies, and by that I mean the United States, agreed to terms of peace. But the state surrounding the emperor was completely reinvented and democratized. Several countries around the world post 1945 needed to be rebuilt and needed to be rebuilt virtually from scratch. And this, in many cases, created a new scramble. Europe was divided between liberal capitalist ideologies on the one hand and communist ideology on the other. Japan was under the complete control of the United States and occupation of the United States. This was, again, due to the fact that with the dropping of the atomic weapons, peace followed within days. And so this meant that the United States had carte blanche as far as a post-war reconstruction and rehabilitation of the Japanese state. It was only the United States that remained largely unscathed as a result of the World War II. It was the only world power that was able to project its power around the world. Industrial centers of production in the United States were untouched by any type of bombing or destruction. It was the only country with nuclear capabilities, and it was a country that possessed 2/3 of the world's total gold bullion reserve, and it was the world's first superpower as a result of all of the above. So what we have here, and this essentially kind of wraps up this lecture in a very kind of cursory summary of the of World War II. But again, I wanted to highlight how the course of events, but really focus on how these conflicts came to dominate the 20th century. Out of each of these conflicts, World War I and II, you see the balance of power fluctuating. It was as if World War I was fought to dismantle old imperial balances of power, and World War II was fought to decide the orientation of a new and the establishing of a new balance of power, one that was bipolar. That is to say that it was going to be the free world versus the communist world, and this would, serve as the central conflict in what became known as the Cold War. Within this new world order, decolonization occurred. The Atlantic Charter and its terms were carried out. That basically the handwriting was on the wall for imperial powers of Europe, particularly France and England, that trying to maintain any type of control over their colonies spread across the globe was simply not going to be tenable moving forward. So these new independent states used the new paradigm, the bipolar paradigm between the United States and the USSR, and they used that to their own advantage as far as establishing their own independence. And we'll take a deeper dive into that next time as we continue to wrap things up here as we get into finals week. All right. So with that, take care. Good luck on the exam coming up, and I'll be posting the last lecture here in the coming days.